Alright, Weirdos, it's time for another independent comic review. This one brought to us by Mr. Austin Light, the creator of Envy. He's the artist and story writer in this. And first, right up off the bat, this is probably one of the most unique stories I've read so far. I really enjoyed this. With that said, I like it because it's a little confusing and it really kind of makes you think. I'll give you an example. Right up off the bat, when you start reading this comic book, one of the first things you'll start to see is that there's two things going on in the first few pages. One, there is a lady by the name of Jenny who's being murdered, and we're not really sure why if you're just reading the comic book. But she ends up dying. And then we also kind of get this depiction of an otherworldly, supernatural, higher plane, right, battle going on. And we're not really sure what that's about either. This is done purposely and ingeniously. What ultimately ends up happening is Jenny ends up dying. She's murdered. And the other character, Envy, kind of meets her and kind of takes her to Limbo. What we come to find out very quickly is Limbo, the purgatory, if you will, the in-between space between heaven and hell, is now taken over and ran by Lucifer and his second in command, his only second, Envy, right, and her sister. They're kind of running. So there's this kind of kangaroo court going on. I thought this was interesting because generally when you think about or when you read about limbo or purgatory, it's just this kind of holding place, right? It's where the spirit hangs out, right? This one, it's actually, in this comic, it's actually given a function. It's where you're judged. And I thought this is where the book really shined and really made itself unique. So as Jenny's sitting there being judged in this kind of kangaroo court kind of situation, the prosecutor, a demon, is kind of explaining what's going on, but there's still enough vagueness in this where you're still kind of like, I'm not sure what I'm reading, but there's a reason for that. So as this is happening, the judge comes out, and the judge is nothing more than, well, it's Jenny. It's an avatar of her. Just for verbiage, we'll just call it an avatar. But she's basically judging herself and finds herself guilty. And man, I just thought that was unique, right? Like, what greater judge of you is there out there other than yourself, right? Like, that feeling, right? That self-talk that happens inside of people, that judgment, right? That's you talking. And I thought that was great. I'm probably going a little deep with it, but that's what I read when I saw this, and I thought it was great. So you find yourself guilty, she gets sent into a deeper part of hell, without giving away the artwork and how fantastic it is, without giving away too much. Dark, scary place, we'll put it that way. And if you're scared of spiders, yeah. So this kind of happens, and now we see the sisters talk, Envy, about what's kind of going on now that they're kind of established in hell, and there's this kind of hint, right, that something else in this overarching story is actually happening. In other words, you didn't read the real story of what's going on in here. It's just a kind of you have the overarching thing in most comic books, and then you have like the side issues. You kind of got the feeling that you were reading more of a side issue in this. The artwork is pretty interesting in it. It's an independent comic. It's black and whites, some red verbiage here and there. But for the most part, it's an independent comic book. And I found it interesting. This is one of those things where if you're a reader of comic books, you're just intrigued enough to want to go down this rabbit hole. You really do. Because one, you just kind of want the story to kind of flesh out to see what's going on, to what's the good and the bad in this, right? We can say Lucifer's bad and all this other stuff. I get that. But is he doing anything bad, or is he just doing his job? So what's the bad thing happening to good people, or what's the good people going to do against the bad thing? Is there a connection to Earth? Like, you're left asking yourself a lot of questions. And that's great for a comic book. It should do that, because you want people to read issues 2, 3, and 4, instead of just picking up first appearances. Right? So I found that to be probably one of the most interesting things in it. Again, I don't judge art. I can only describe it. Again, it's this black and white feel to it, but you kind of get this sense of a hint of like manga type artwork to it. I don't know if that's right or not, but you definitely see it in the prosecutor when they show him. You're like, oh, that looks like something you would see in a manga comic. So I thought that was interesting. Definitely a different art choice for the subject matter of the story, right? I thought that was interesting. So definitely a battle of heaven and hell, and where does Earth fit in, and judging yourself. That's this whole story in a nutshell, and I thought it was really smart. If you read Envy, definitely let me know what you thought of it down in the comments down below. I will be sure Mr. Austin Light, I will put his socials down there, and of course his Kickstarter on there, like I always do in these things, down in the description down below if this is something you want to chase down. Because it's getting harder and harder to get independent stuff, right? Because all the big ones shine, right? Kind of limits these guys into their marketing. So as always, I was happy to do this. Anybody else out there that wants me to review their independent comic, I am happy to do it. You can hit me up on Instagram at Pocan_Joe, and just shoot me a DM. I'm happy to do it. And definitely want to get the links and everything. So yeah, whatever I showed you in this barely told the story. I'm telling you, it's good. It's interesting, and it's unique. I think that's good compliments. I think that will end this comic book review. Definitely like, subscribe, all that other good stuff. I'm here for whatever. You guys have a great weekend. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.